Today, our agenda, what we will be learning today is Linux file structure. So this is the very beginning and basics of Linux, and we will do commands on Linux. Now, before I proceed, is everybody does everybody have access to AWS account? And yesterday, as I showed, using IAM user. Do we have that, everybody? Anybody has any problem with it yet?
I have it.
Or did anybody face any trouble or problem with it? Because without that, you will not be able to practice. So also we will discuss about AWS regions and availability zones. Okay, let me actually start with the AWS thing. Let us go in reverse order here. So how it works out is something like this. All across the world, AWS has got something called availability zones. Regions. Okay, so if you do a Google check of AWS regions, so you might want to check out this link, global infrastructure of AWS. So this is the North American continent. Okay, let me reduce the page here. In North America here, see the green ones are the regions. These are the major places where the data centers of AWS are situated, and the red ones are upcoming. They are in construction. Okay, so if I hover over each of them, so in the North American region, we can see in the North American continent, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 regions are there. Okay, and each region. So similarly, let's see the other regions. In South America, we have got only one region, Sao Paulo. In North America, get to know these names, okay? These are very important. Canada Central is there, Northern Virginia. This is AWS Gov Cloud, US East region. So anything with Gov Cloud, that region, even if it exists, it is not open for public. It is only for government employees, or it is used by military. So this one will not be available for us in our console. Okay. Then there is Ohio region. Each of the region, wherever I'm hovering, if you see at the bottom, it says availability zone. Okay, this is important. Then again, Gov Cloud. There is Northern California, and there is Oregon. Okay. Now in South America, we have got only one region with 3 availability zones. Europe, a little bit busier. So we have got one in Ireland, one in UK. This is Stockholm, Frankfurt, Paris, Spain, Zurich, and this is Milan. So why you need to know about, you don't have to memorize this, but you should have an idea about the regions and availability zones. Availability zones you will not be able to see in the map. Okay, but they are somewhere in this region. That is something Amazon does not disclose. In the Middle East, we have got 2. One of them is upcoming in Israel. But otherwise, we have got one in Bahrain and one in UAE. Okay, in Bahrain, there is, okay, availability zone is 3, local zone is there. 1 local zone is there. Okay. Let's check Africa. In Africa, there is only 1, probably South Africa, Cape Town. I thought it was Pretoria, but it is in Cape Town. Asia Pacific, this is a bit busier. In India itself, we have got 2 regions. This Hyderabad was launched only last year, the Hyderabad region, and otherwise we have got one in Mumbai. The rest of them are in China, 2 of them. One is in South Korea, Seoul. 1 and 2 of them are in Osaka, in Japan, Osaka and Tokyo. One is in Hong Kong. Okay, and one of them is in Jakarta, and here Singapore. Yeah, of course, Singapore is an important trading hub. In Malaysia and in Thailand, it is upcoming. Fine. The last one is Australia and New Zealand. Here we have got only 2. Both of them are in Australia. One is upcoming in New Zealand. Fine. So what does this actually mean? There are a lot of things like local zone, wavelength zone, regional service, edge locations. Okay, so let me come to the Asia Pacific region. Now, what does this region mean? So when you log in, let me actually log in. So I'm logging in as a IAM user. Give me a second. I'm trying to generate the multi-factor authentication tool. Okay, so the regions which I was showing here, let me open it up in a different tab. The regions that I was showing here, they will be visible to you once you log in. Here at the top right corner, this is where you see the regions. The ones which are highlighted, now the regions that are visible to you, that are available for your use, they would depend on from which region in the world you are. Okay. All of the regions will not be available to all people. See, like for me, 10 regions here, like Cape Town, Melbourne, Hong Kong, these are not enabled for me. But then what I can do is, I can raise a service request and I can ask them to provide access. So until by default, it will not be provided. But then the rest of these regions, I have access. In any of these regions, whatever resources are they are providing, I can use them to build whatever app or server or database or data center, whatever I want to build. Okay, so that is the concept of regions. So worldwide, you can say it is something like this. So if this is a region, let's say this is a region. Earlier we saw that there are availability zones in a region. Okay. So what is this zone? What is the availability zone? Let us understand this. Basically, when you're talking about AWS region, it is nothing but a cluster of data centers. So what is a data center? Let's see an image. Data center will be a huge building where you will have these racks and racks, hundreds and hundreds of servers. Okay, so this is a data center is a place where you will have all the physical hardware. I'm saying in terms of cloud. Okay. You will have all the physical hardware to build servers, networking devices, virtual endpoints, or EC2 instances, whatever. It is a facility that houses all the computer systems and its related components for telecommunication, for storage. Okay, from where you can store, manage, or send and receive large amounts of data and information. So now the thing is, these are not ordinary buildings. They are designed to provide a secure and reliable environment. First of all, their data centers will be built in such a way. Their buildings are actually sort of, the way they are built is they are earthquake resistant. Number one. Then they have got multiple backup generators. So even in case of a power outage, they will still be operational. They have got a redundant power supply. They will always, so majorly in terms of AWS, this is for providing the cloud services. All the services that AWS is providing. Okay. So now just like this, when I'm saying cluster of data centers in one region, this AWS does not disclose where it is, how it is, obviously for security reason. So there will be like multiple data centers. And then together that will form a cluster. And that is what you can say is your these data centers together, that is forming a region. Okay. Now, how does this work out is every region, AWS claims that every region comes above availability zone. Availability zone. So moving forward, I will just call it AZ. Okay, so every region will have availability zones. A minimum of 2 availability zones will definitely be there. Minimum of 2. Why? If you think about it, suppose this is in one region, this is region. Some name will be there of this region. So this is availability zone 1 and this is availability zone 2. So they once again, what are they? They are nothing but cluster of data centers spread across. Now, the concept of availability zones is the availability zones are never placed together. They would be at least 100 kilometers apart.
So basically,
Can I-
availability zones are nothing but data centers, a cluster of data centers in one place, and then obviously,
No, not in one place. That is what I'm saying. They have to be 100 km apart.
no, that is between two different availability zones. Like one availability zone, I'm talking is a cluster of data centers in one place, right? But availability zone 2 will be, of course, 100 kilometers away from the availability zone 1.
Why?
That's for disaster recovery, right?
Disaster recovery, it is related to that. But in case like one of the availability zone goes down, maybe because of some natural calamity, like earthquake, or
Yeah.
maybe there is a severe snowstorm, like this happened recently in North America and Canada. Or if there is a severe power outage, that can also happen. And this happens, availability zones go down.
Yeah, yeah.
Then at least if one is down, the other will be up. And when that so the business continuity, so disaster recovery comes, I mean, like it's related to it, but it is the main thing is business continuity.
Yeah.
But it is related. You are on the correct track, actually, not a wrong sentence.
My question was like in one availability zone, will there be several data centers? I was thinking that one availability zone will have one big data center, and then the second availability zone will have one more bigger data center, somewhere 200, 100 or 200.
Maybe, may not be. The thing is, Amazon is quite secretive about this, obviously because of security reasons. And when we say data, so it is always a cluster of data centers. They may not have everything, and also it is not wise to keep everything in one place, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There is a very high possibility it would actually be spread across. Okay, but then those things are, once again, there is something that we can manage, and then there is something called AWS managed. You will come across this term quite frequently. Okay, so what is AWS managed? Anything in the background under the hood, what AWS is providing and controlling. Okay, we can only ask for it. So, for example, we can ask for something called elastic IP. Oops. Elastic IP. So, elastic IP is nothing. They will provide us with a static public IP. This is a chargeable thing, even in the free tier. Okay. So, if you have to, IP is nothing but IP, Internet Protocol address. Okay. So, this will be a public IP will be a value using which, if it is static, then you can, I mean, like, you can assign it to your resources so that, I mean, like, even if you shut down your systems or whatever, it won't change. I will show what I mean by this. So this was the, okay, let me actually complete the availability zone thing. So different regions have different availability zones. When you log into your EC2 console, if you want to see the thing about availability zones, go to VPC, or in the global infrastructure, actually you can see. Yeah, so actually it is just showing the names. No. Okay, you'll have to check through VPC only. So if you search in your service here like VPC is nothing but virtual private cloud. We will come to this later on. But right now I'm just focused on the word availability zone. So which, once again, we will never, it will never be disclosed, like where the actual availability zone location is. But if, for example, here the region right now selected is Asia Pacific, Mumbai. So this one. Now here, if you can see the availability zone, 3 availability zones are there and 2 local zones are there. We are now understanding only availability zone. You will come across these words like local zone, edge location. Now these are nothing but further data center clusters, and they have got different uses. Now, for our purpose, we require the concept of availability zone. So, this is in the Mumbai region, there are two virtual private clouds created here. One comes with default, but if I select this and check its details, every new AWS account, when it gets created, it will have a list of regions as per the geolocation of the user, where the person created the account. So region 1, region 2. I mean, like, actually, let me write down the names. My bad. So, like Mumbai, Ohio, these are the regions. Tokyo, and the rest of the other 16, 17 regions. Now, whenever a new AWS account is created, the regions visible are based on the location of the user who created that. Now, whenever you are creating this account and the regions are getting created, in each region, by default, you will get one VPC. That is a virtual private cloud. This will be explained later. But I'm giving you some facts here, and we will be, whatever work we are doing, it will be based on those facts. One virtual private cloud per region. Okay. And subnets. This is another VPC and subnets and networking concept, but this is important right now to at least know. You don't have to understand it right now, but at least know that this thing exists. Subnet. I'm writing subnets. Okay. How many subnets? That will vary. What it will vary on? It will vary on your availability zone. So let me explain this in diagram here. Where is the diagram? Here. So you have got region, and every region will have at least minimum of 2 availability zones. Okay. But then depending on the region and depending on its commercial value, the number of zones can go up to 6 or 7. Just bear with me. Let me see if I can get a list of the availability zones. Yeah. Somewhere it will come from Google. AWS availability zones. Per region. Okay, I'm not getting a list here. Yeah, okay, so see. This is something that, yeah, this is what I was looking for. Exactly. So if we take this table, I don't need to write anything here. So this is the region. Region will contain the availability zone, but this is endpoint. Here, something like this. Yeah, this is what I was searching for. Okay, let me actually grab this image. So here we have got this list. This is exactly what I was looking for. These are the regions like North Virginia, Ohio, California, North California, Oregon, Ireland, Mumbai. So let's take Mumbai. In Mumbai, it is showing this is actually a old data. It is showing 3 availability zones. That means, if you think about it, it is something like this. In the Mumbai region, there would be 3 AZs, AZ1, AZ2. So these are once again database data center clusters, and AZ3. Okay, they would all be separate from each other. In case of Mumbai, there is something called AP South 1C also. There are 3 availability zones. I think this data is a little bit old. So this AP South 1A, AP South 1B, AP South 1C, they will all be placed at least 100 kilometers away from each other. And within these availability zones, you can create your own virtual private cloud. Okay. Now let me actually rephrase that. Bear with me. From here, it becomes a little bit complex. You have got, because everything will be, it will start with the VPC. You cannot work without a VPC in any AWS region. So we will work with VPC and we will work with subnets. This is what I was actually trying to say earlier. You will be creating subnets are a part of, they are directly related with availability zone. There is a one-to-one mapping. So as many availability zones are there, if you can create as many subnets you want, but whenever you are trying to create a subnet, it has to be placed in an availability zone. So going back to the earlier thing here, what I was trying to explain, whenever you are creating a new AWS account, there will be default VPCs and default subnets created for you. Okay, so one VPC per region will be created. So for me, if I've got access to, let's say, 17 regions, by default, AWS will create 17 VPCs for me whenever the account is created. And each VPC will have as many subnets, as many availability zones are present in that region. So for example, if the Mumbai region has got, we saw that Mumbai has got 3 availability zones. So by default, in the Mumbai region, let me actually draw it here. So in the Mumbai region, I will have one default VPC created and 3 subnets created. Okay, without VPC and without a subnet, you cannot create resources. They have to be assigned within a VPC. Now that diagram looks something like this. So you got your availability zones here like this. Now, typically in any region, you can create up to 5 VPCs in total. One default will be provided and maximum you can create 5. Okay, but then it is not as if it is, after that it will, you will get some stopping message per region, but then you will have to raise a ticket or email AWS, and then they will allow you with the, they will allow you, or they will make the system, prepare the system so that you can add additional VPCs. Right, because in a paid version, the more VPCs you use, the more revenue actually Amazon will earn. So you will get default VPCs and default subnets, one default VPC per region, but the number of subnets per VPC. That will depend on the number of availability zones. So for example, in this diagram, if we see like North Virginia, it is showing 5 availability zones. Actually, it has become 6. This is old data. So by default, North Virginia will have 1 VPC, but 6 subnets. And all of these subnets, each subnet will be placed in each availability zone, a different availability zone. So before you can start work, whatever you are configuring, it could be a web app, it could be some kind of other cloud application, or whatever your software you are building. AWS actually starts making it easier for you to work with. Okay, so obviously because these are going to, so in the North Virginia region you will have 1 VPC, 6 subnets, but in Ohio you will have 1 VPC. Every one of them will have only 1 VPC, but the number of subnets will vary as per the number of availability zones. Having said that, you do not have any restriction for creating subnets. Okay, but you have restriction for creating VPC. You can delete the default one and then you can create your own 5 VPCs, but AWS allows up to 5 VPCs. And during our practice also, we will not need more than 1 VPC to work. Any questions till this part?
No, thanks.
So availability zone. Now, let us see the correlation here between region, availability zone, VPC, and subnet. Okay, so how does this work out? It is a bit tricky to show actually. So I'm not showing more than I've already told it, but I'm not doing the entire thing here. Like there can be a maximum of up to 5 VPCs. Now you can use the same VPC across multiple availability zones. There is a key difference here. Okay, the VPC has to be within one region only. So for example, so let's say this is the North Virginia region. Okay, similarly, and this availability zone. So this is the code that is used. So the region code will always be US East 1. And then after that, the star, what AWS uses, very simple terminology they use, A, B, C, D, E. And now it has also probably become F. So this A, B, C, D, E will be one different availability zone. But then the initial part here, if you remove the A, B, C, D, E, that will define US East 1 separated by hyphens, that will always refer to North Virginia. Okay, so this is the North Virginia region, and under that US East 1A, that is one availability zone. And then US East 1B, that is another availability zone. So if I create my, so let's say this is VPC 1. This VPC I can use in both the availability zones. Now about subnet. Subnets fall under a VPC. So subnets are of two types. One is a private subnet and the other is a public subnet. This we will discuss later. But in short, public subnet will have access to the internet. Private subnet will not have any direct access, but it can access. So subnets will always fall under a VPC. Now, similar to North Virginia region, there are other regions also. So for example, now let us say this region is Mumbai. The VPC1, which I created in North Virginia, now see the restriction. It can be used in the North Virginia has got 6 availability zones. It can be used parallelly in any one of those 6 availability zones. But the VPC can be used, but the subnet cannot be used in more than one availability zone. Am I clear in this? The VPC is actually a network that we are defining when we are creating. By default, AWS will create its own network and provide it to us. But then how many computers we want, how many subnetworks we want, that we can define on our own. Once again, I'm saying the VPC can be used, same VPC, like for example, VPC1 here, it can be used across all the 6 availability zones in North Virginia region. But this VPC1, if it is residing in the North Virginia region, you cannot use it in any other region, like Mumbai. If you create a VPC in Mumbai, that cannot be used in North Virginia. VPCs are region-centric. Am I clear in this? It might be new. It will be new for people who have not worked with this kind of thing, infrastructure earlier. But this networking, this VPC and subnet is actually detailed discussion will be conducted in the networking sessions. But right now I have to create a EC2 instance, and there you will see these options. That is the reason why I am discussing this. You cannot create a resource without assigning a VPC, without choosing a region, without choosing the availability zone or a subnet. Whenever you are choosing a subnet, you are in the background actually choosing an availability zone. Where exactly is this resource lying? Does anybody have any questions? There should be questions.
So in short, Kallol, VPC is specific to a region, subnet is specific to an availability zone. Yeah, we cannot merge one subnet range into 2 different availability zones. It has to be specific for that availability zone, right?
When you are creating a subnet, by default, it is a 1:1 mapping.
Yeah.
But VPC is
is region specific.
Is regions? No. See, yeah, that is where it actually becomes tricky to understand. But it is not that difficult. Let me show you a mapping diagram. So, first of all, whenever you are comparing, you need to compare. You need to make sure what are the 2 identities you are comparing. Okay. Based on that, then you will have to think. So, for example, VPC and region. If we are comparing these 2, then VPC and region have got a 1:1 mapping. So one VPC can only be used in one region. Okay, so in mapping language, it is written like this: 1:1. Okay. Within one region, if we are using one VPC, and let's say we are using the Mumbai region. Okay. In the Mumbai region, we have got 1A, 1B, and 1C. These are the availability
zones.
Okay, so when you are using a VPC, one VPC can be used across all the availability zones within one region. So here we have got a one-to-many relationship. The same VPC can be used in 1A, it can be used in 1B, it can be used in 1C. Now, this is the discussion when we are comparing. There is no comparison here. There is a relationship. You cannot compare a VPC with a region. They are absolutely two different entities. But here we are discussing the relationship. In one region can have up to a maximum of 5 VPCs. But then the VPC which is created in one region, it cannot be used in a different region. So if I'm creating a VPC in Mumbai, that VPC I will not be able to use in North Virginia. That is not possible as per the AWS infrastructure. Okay. But later on you will see the VPC of North Virginia can be connected to the VPC of Mumbai. That is a separate thing. That is a completely separate thing. That is the networking. Okay, there is something called VPC endpoint, but that is a higher level thing. Let's not get into that. First, understand this is the relationship between VPC and region. The same VPC can be used across multiple availability zones within all those. But the thing is, all those availability zones have to lie within the same region. Compared to that, if we are discussing VPC with subnet, the relationship. Okay, so whenever we are discussing subnet, automatically, okay, so let us actually discuss subnet relationship with availability zone. Now, there are a fixed number of availability zones. Let me take the example of Mumbai again. So in the Mumbai region, you have got 3 availability zones. Now, whenever a subnet is created, either AW creates it or we create it on our own. One subnet has got a 1:1 mapping with availability zone. One subnet cannot be associated with multiple availability zones. Okay, so this is if this is subnet 1, it can only go either with 1A, 1B, or 1C. So if you want, but then this same subnet 1 will be a subset. It will be, so if there is it will have to be some part of some VPC. So here we have got the VPC, and then within this you will have the subnet. In this case, so if this is VPC 1, we have got our subnet 1, and this subnet 1 will be associated with only one particular availability zone. Subnets, now if you have got multiple VPCs, okay, so now let us say we have got VPC 2 as well. Subnet 1 with VPC will have a 1-to-1 relationship. Subnet 1 cannot be used on VPC 2. Am I making sense here?
Yeah,
it is clear.
Subnet 2, whenever you create, but then subnet 2 can be associated with availability zone 1, the same availability zone, but in a different VPC.
Yeah. So can we make this statement in that case? The VPC's association with availability zone is through subnets.
VPC association to availability zone.
Yeah, a particular VPC's association with availability zone.
VPC association will be with subnet. Actually, it is the other way. VPC is associated with subnet, but then while creating the subnet, you can choose only one availability zone.
Okay.
Okay. Between the subnet and availability zone, there is a 1:1 mapping. But between the VPC and the availability zones, there is 1:many mapping. The same VPC you can use in multiple availability zones. Okay, so this is not a comparison. We cannot compare a VPC with an availability zone. Just like we cannot compare a car with a house. We can only compare entities which are similar. So these are not similar quantities. What we are discussing here is relationship. This is not a comparison again. Please don't take it otherwise here. Okay, so let me actually show you the reason why I needed to discuss this. It is okay if you do not grasp it in one go. It is fine. Gradually, you will be able to understand this. But the point here is, whatever you are going through, like whatever you will be doing in AWS console or in OT, don't just blindly swallow it. I mean, like all of them are very logically created, and whatever you are typing, it will have some reason. To my best ability, I will always give you the reason why I am doing something, why I am writing a command. But then you also should have your own curiosity. Like, what does this command actually do? Like, if I'm clicking on this, why is it happening? So EC2, let me discuss this EC2 and I will try to sort of correlate the earlier topics which I discussed. Let me show you the VPC thing first. See, so right now, see what I'm doing. Let me actually get rid of all the other tabs. So the first thing that you do whenever you log in is you will be in a region. Whatever name is provided here, whenever you log in, it all starts with the region. So right now it is showing Mumbai region. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the comparison between Mumbai and other regions for the VPC. VPC is once again virtual private cloud. Okay, yeah, let me just give you one picture here. So it is something like this. This is me, my AWS account. Okay, let me not write me. Let me actually give a practical example here. So this is Kallol. Kallol has got his own AWS account. Okay, here we are talking in terms of root account only. So similarly, there is Kiran. Kiran also has his own AWS account. Now I can see somebody called Carlton. So Carlton also has his own AWS root account I'm talking about here. Okay, so these are your AWS accounts. All of these AWS accounts are part of the internet. Because you, me, or anyone will access their AWS account on the internet only. But then once you log in, you will have all the regions and rest of the stuff, all the resources as per your geolocation, whatever AWS can provide at your location. Now, here comes the concept of your VPC. The VPC thing is your so virtual private. I'm enhancing, I'm trying to highlight the word private, and then obviously it is on the cloud because it is in the internet. Why is it virtual? Because we are actually not using any physical device to create it. That is something which is managed by AWS. That is why I used this word earlier, if you remember. Somewhere I wrote down. AWS managed. All the hardware required, although this is virtual, it is virtual for us. At the AWS data center, it is not virtual. It is quite physical. There are racks and racks, hundreds and thousands of racks of servers, databases, networking equipment, which is providing you with all these facilities. to the customers. Now, Kallol will have his own VPC, more than one as per region. So Kiran will have his set of VPCs, and Carlton will also have his set of VPCs. They are all private. I cannot get into Kiran's VPC. Kiran cannot get into Carlton's VPC. They are all private. So this is the thing about security. You can VPC you can consider that is the internal network that is created within which all the resources are going to be placed. Okay, so that is why this concept is so important. A VPC will always have its own private IP. This is something called CIDR. We will discuss this later on. Initially, we are not going to get into this, but you have to keep in mind any resource you create within AWS, it has to be connected to some network, to some VPC. That is your private space where you are keeping your resources secure. Okay. Let us discuss this later on in networking class. Otherwise, I'm actually outreaching myself here. Now, the major thing I wanted to showcase here is the VPCs are all disjoint. Your AWS account, my AWS account, they are all on the internet, but then they are all separate. They are not connected. Until and unless you connect them, you authorize them to get connected. Okay. So how they are kept separate, it is through the VPC actually. So yes, it is possible the resources in my VPC can communicate with the resource in your VPC, but then we will have to authorize it. There has to be a tunnel and a handshaking that needs to be done between the resources. Okay, that is not that straightforward. It has to be done separately. But by default, they will all be kept separate. Now, getting back to the discussion of region versus VPC, let me show you. So in Mumbai, if I click on VPC here, so this one I created, and then this one default do not use. I have named it later on, but this one was the default VPC which was created with a particular IP address and CIDR value. Okay, do you see this? This numeric value has to be assigned, otherwise it won't work. Similarly, so if I go to, now let me go to a different region. This I was showing you for Mumbai. Now let me change the region here. Let's go to Ohio. Now, once I select the region, it is reloading. And then it is showing me a VPC. See, the VPC ID here, it ends with 08AD. But in the Mumbai region, this is the default one. Ignore the top one that I created on my own. BDC0. So see, the ID is different. This ID is actually nothing but a resource name. This is called ARN. ARN. You will quite frequently come across this name. ARN is nothing but Amazon Resource Name. And now imagine how many users, Amazon AWS users are there in this world. And there would be millions, right? And each of them would be creating, somebody is going to create with one root account, you can create so many child accounts. And then each of these child accounts will be doing something in Amazon. Somebody would be creating EC2 instances, somebody would be writing Lambda functions, somebody would be creating databases, somebody would be creating subnets. So there are millions and millions of Amazon resources. Now, this is something which you actually come across in daily life quite frequently, but people do not observe it. In daily life, which number system do we use? That is a question. Anybody can answer. I'm asking about number system. Like we count money, right? Everybody counts money. So that what is the number system used there? Okay, it's a silly question actually. It is decimal. I'm discussing a little bit maths here, but you will understand why I'm saying this. How many digits are there in decimal system? Please feel free to answer. Yes. How many?
10.
Yeah. So they are 0 to 9. Using only these, in total it is 10. 0 you have to include. So in total there are 10 digits. Using this entire 10 digits, we can form very large numbers or very small numbers. But the problem is when the numbers become very, very large, it becomes tedious to write. Okay. When the numbers are like very large, then we, instead of using the decimal system, then we use something called a hexadecimal system. Can anybody say like how many digits we have in hexadecimal?
16.
Very good. So there are 16 digits, 0 to 9, and apart from that, we use A, B, C, D, E, and F. So obviously, because there are millions and millions of resources which are being generated in AWS, and each resource needs to be assigned a unique ARN value. The way AWS does is it assigns hexadecimal numbers. So initially, if you are creating a VPC, it will just mention VPC hyphen, and then this is a string of digits here, as you can see. This is actually a hexadecimal number. Where else do you see hexadecimal number? If you check your router, your Wi-Fi router, below it, there will be a sticker. Okay. And you will see something like this. Something like a MAC address. Now, any router you choose, there will always be the MAC address. Okay, see this WLAN MAC, LAN MAC. Well, they have hid it here, but it is something like this: digits and numbers. And so it is actually a number, although D is written here. Why? Because this is a hexadecimal number. Whenever the numbers have to be uniquely identified and your and the quantity is very large, then usually in computer science and engineering, we use hexadecimal number. So this is a hexadecimal number. Always you will have digits between 0 to 9 and A through F. So see, the point I was trying to make is every Amazon resource will have its own ID. If you're using VPC, it will have a VPC ID, and then it will have a unique ARN value, the Amazon resource name value, which is nothing but a hexadecimal number. So the VPC ID for me in the Ohio region, the default VPC. As I told earlier, every region by default, whenever you create account, this I did not create. This Amazon created for me. There will be a default VPC per region. So right now, if I see here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I've got access to 17 regions. So when I had created my account, by default, Amazon created 17 VPCs. Okay, so now if I every VPC dashboard I open for every region. So if I go to North California now, again there will be a VPC. but then with a different ID. That itself shows, see, this is 0A6D in the North California region. Okay, so this shows that all the VPCs are separate. Now, if I want to create a EC2 instance in Mumbai, I cannot use the VPC of North California. That is simply not possible. If I'm creating a resource in a region, I will have to use the VPC which is present in that region only. Okay. Now, let me end the class by showing you the subnets. So if I click on this VPC link, I will get the details. Then I will get the subnets. Actually, this is my, this is a default subnet actually. So these are the subnets which are available. This is how you can see the subnet list. So this is my default VPC in the region of Mumbai, and Mumbai has got, you scroll down after clicking on the VPC, you will see the subnets. By default, there are 3 subnets. And each of this name here, this is the availability zone. And below that, what you are seeing, that is the subnet name. Again, how it is named? Subnet hyphen, and then there is a hexadecimal number, just like I said here. So subnet is also a resource, right? It also needs a unique Amazon resource name. So because the quantities are very large, by the default nomenclature or the naming methodology here is typing in the initial value, like if it is a subnet, here they are mentioning subnet, but if it could be a VPC, they will just mention VPC. If it is a instance, then I hyphen and then hexadecimal code. Okay, so in the, where did it go? In the Mumbai region, my default VPC, it is showing 3 default subnets. And each of the subnet is 1:1 mapped or uniquely mapped with each availability zone. So 1A, AP South 1A, AP South 1B, AP South 1C. These are the 3 availability zones which are available. Below that is the subnet ARN value or the subnet ID. Did I make sense? Any questions here?
It's clear, Kallol. Can you just show me how you exactly did you come to this page on AWS after selecting VPC?
So I actually selected VPC. So this one is under Mumbai.
Yeah, okay.
Now let me show you in comparison in Ohio.
Yeah.
Moment you see, as I told you, the moment you log in, everything starts with the region. So before starting your work, make sure you are in the correct region. Okay. Otherwise, if you are creating an instance in Ohio and later on you log in and you are searching it in Mumbai, you are never going to get it. So I have chosen the region, and then I mean, like whatever you want to, whichever service you want to see. So in this case, it was VPC. So my objective was to show you the default unique VPCs. So 17 regions I have access to. I have got 17 VPCs which were created by Amazon by default. Whenever I created the root account, I signed up for the AWS service. Now, if you click on VPC, you will get further details. And this is the Ohio region. And in that, if you see with this particular VPC, I have got 3 availability zones: US East 2A, 2B, and 2C. And then there are further unique subnets. These subnets are associated only with this VPC. If I create a separate VPC under Ohio region, I will not be able to use these subnets in my VPC 2. Subnets are child sets of VPC. I think I have explained this earlier in diagram. Yeah, this is what I said earlier, right? Subnet 1,
Yes.
if it is part of VPC 1, it cannot be used in VPC 2. Okay, so this is the relationship. Now, we have run out of time. I intended to show the EC2 instance thing. Remember, whatever I have shown here, I actually forgot. I should have started with this. It came to me a bit later. Initially, I said I will be discussing Linux file structure and commands, but actually, this thing is more important here. Because why? Because before running the Linux commands, I need a computer. And before I create the computer, I needed to discuss where am I going to create the computer, in which region, in which VPC, in which availability zone. So that is why I went into this. But well, anyways, it is done. Done in the sense it is partially done. VPC and Subnet, they have got their own networking session, because later on we will see all VPCs are assigned a CIDR value. Okay, a private IP along with a CIDR range. Okay, only people who have earlier worked with in networking, only they will understand this. Or else, if you have actually personally learned it. Similarly, subnets. See, just think about the word subnet. It is a sub network out of the VPC. So basically, in diagram, anyways, this is a discussion for a later class. But I'm briefly telling you, if this is your VPC network, okay, for example, 10.0.0.0/16. Don't get into this. This is the way it is described. This will be explained later on. This is your VPC. The VPC network is defined using this number. Then you are creating subnet. See why subnet of one VPC cannot be used in another VPC. Whenever you are associating a subnet in a VPC, you are breaking the entire network of the VPC into smaller parts. Okay, let's say I break up my VPC into 10 parts. Each one of these parts is a subnet. S6, S7, S8, S9, S10. So this subnet is a part of the VPC. That is why it is a child from the parent. Okay, just like one child cannot belong to different parents, different couples. Similarly, one subnet cannot belong to a different VPC if it is already part of a VPC. Okay, we will discuss all of this in detail. Obviously, we can't do it in one class. So, for the time being, apart from the networking part, rest of the concept I have provided so that you can now create your resources in AWS in whatever region you want to. And our starting resource tomorrow, what we will start with is EC2, or basically this is a computer that we are going to build. Elastic Cloud Compute. So they have done a clever pun with the number 2. So actually, instead of writing ECC, they have made it C2. Okay. So let's meet tomorrow again, unless there are any questions that need to be, any technical doubt from the session that I conducted now. This is the time to ask. Nothing. I will take the silence as acceptance that all of you have understood till now what I've asked, what I taught.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining. I appreciate your time and patience. Let's meet again same time tomorrow.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.